All right, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to another We've Read the Documents live stream. Your host, John Brisson. Thank you for being a subscriber. Sorry, I've been gone for a while. Had some family stuff to deal with. My daughter was sick. Had a silent H. pylori infection and caused a bleeding ulcer. I myself had gotten ill. Just so much stuff. So I want to thank you guys for your prayers, your patience, everything. Just thank you very much. All glory to God. If you want to donate, buy me coffee / we've read, trying to raise $100 for this coming week. If all donations are appreciated, thank you for everybody. And you want to subscribe, which is another way of supporting me. Search We Read the Documents on Patreon, Substack. Substack gives you access to my content. You get access to my written work, as well as being able to listen to my live streams in audio format. My fellow brother Christ and I, Jeremy Stone, have a Christian podcast. By their fruits, listen to wherever you listen to your podcast normally. God bless each and every one of you. So I'm opening with Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lead not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Okay, so we got a lot to cover. I know I've been gone, and a lot to get through today, and a lot of things are changing. Former Chinese billionaire and Bannon associate is sentenced for fraud. The businessman courted United States conservatives as an anti-communist crusader while using his supporters' money to buy lavish homes and a Bugatti supercar. That would be one Miles Guo, or Guo Wangi, a Chinese businessman who transformed himself from a Beijing insider into an anti-communist crusader and ally of the American far right, was sentenced to 30 years in prison on Monday for defrauding investors, including many of his own fervent supporters, of hundreds of millions of dollars. And yes, justice was served against one Miles Guo. Hopefully justice will be served yet again to CMP Stephen Ketamine Bannon, and he goes to prison yet again for a much longer sentence. Mr. Guo, who has made a fortune in Beijing as a real estate developer and has forged an alliance with a corrupt intelligence official there, fled China in 2015, settling in a $68 million Manhattan penthouse overlooking Central Park. There he took to the social media and YouTube denouncing the Chinese Communist Party and luring thousands of followers, convinced that Mr. Guo would harness his wealth and inside knowledge to bring democracy to China. He took them into his confidence, and they showered him with money, buying shares into his media company, dubious club memberships, and fake cryptocurrency that he promised would make them alt-rich beyond belief. Mr. Guo, also known as Miles Walk, used the money to fund a lavish lifestyle, buying an estate in rural New Jersey, a mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut, a $4.4 million Bugatti supercar. He was arrested in his Manhattan apartment in 2023, convicted in federal court the following year of racketeering, conspiracy, securities fraud, and money laundering conspiracy. No, you remember Carson? Taking down the CCP. Shout out to Billy. I'll see if I can find that Miles Guo rap. Taking down the CCP. No, Carson, they're not taking down the CCP. Miles Guo is in prison where he belongs. Justice was served. Now, of course, we should pray for Miles Guo. Becomes born again. But justice was served in this case. Justice was served. Hopefully he is in prison for a majority of his sentence. It takes Bugattis to take down the CCP, John Carson says to me. Hey, shout out, Laura. Hope you're doing well. Yeah. Shout out to you, Wheezy. Splendy Saturday to you as well. No, that was not. Obviously, I would never play Mormon music on this channel. That was a Wesleyan hymn. Man, those Wesley brothers know how to write a hymn, in my opinion. All right, so let's continue. Mr. Guo, who was about 58, looked a diminished man, once trim and smartly dressed in his signature Brioni suits. He entered the courtroom in a two-piece tan prison uniform. He appeared to have gained weight. In the years since his trial, his dark, closed-cropped hair had grayed. His sentencing, originally scheduled for November 2024, was delayed after the former billionaire, who had earlier declared bankruptcy, asked for new court-appointed lawyers. The Monday hearing also started late after Mr. Guo was taken to the hospital early that morning for a fall. He claimed to have been vomiting and bleeding and spent most of his remarks, possibly the last public address he will make for a quarter century or more, in a rant against a prosecutor who called him a malinger. After settling in Manhattan in 2015, Mr. Guo moved quickly to build a political network in America akin to one he left in China. By 2017, he was a member of Mar-a-Lago, new elected president's resort in Palm Beach, Florida. For his arrest, Mr. Gual built political and business connections with some powerful people in President Trump's orbit. Among them was CMP Stephen Ketamine Bannon, the former Trump aide who had $1 million consulting contract to advise Mr. Gual and his media company. And, of course, Miles Gual as well, me and Billy, I remember bringing it up and us watching it live where he did a blood ritual, a blood oath with Bannon in front of the Statue of Liberty on his yacht where he cut his hand. And Bannon cut his hand, and they became blood brothers. That he was going to take down the CCP. Well, it could be a little bit difficult, penniless in prison. But, you know, maybe it's the deep state coming against Miles Gual. Do you think it's the deep state coming against Miles Gual, chat? The two men formed an alliance with Mr. Gual, boasting Mr. Bannon's podcast on his Chinese language media network. Mr. Bannon was by his side in June 2020, and Mr. Gual with the Statue of Liberty as a backdrop. I told you. I watched it. It was crazy. Fireworks. New York was like, what is going on? New York City was like, why is there fireworks? In June 2020, and they did the blood oath ritual in front of the Statue of Liberty. Declared the formation of the new federal state of China. Peter Navarro, CMP, good old Peter Navarro. Another Trump aide would be the shadow government's international ambassador. From this day forward, the Communist Party is not the legal government of China, Mr. Gual declared. Looks like it is. A few months later, he released a song called Take Down the CCP, which remember he used to play on Bannon's show all the time, which briefly held the #1 spot on the iTunes chart. While aboard Mr. Gual's yacht, the Lady May in August 2020, Mr. Bannon was arrested on charges of defrauding investors. Mr. Trump would eventually pardon Stephen Ketamine Bannon for this. That would be because of the build the wall fraud. Later in 2020, Mr. Gual inserted himself deep into the presidential campaign. It was on his media network that material from a laptop belonging to Hunter Biden, the soon-to-be president's son, first appeared, and a lot of misinformation around that as well, too. On October 10th, the year, Mr. Gual hosted Mr. Bannon and Rudolph Giuliani, CMP Rudolph Giuliani, the former mayor of New York City, a Trump lawyer and former New York mayor, in his Manhattan penthouse for dinner and cigars, the New York Times reported. But Trump lost that election. In the years followed, Mr. Gual focused on drawing funds from growing ranks of supporters. Ryan B. Finkel, one of the prosecutors, said that 235 victims had given statements, many of them claiming that they lost their life savings. I lost my will to live, one victim said. Judge Torres and the U.S. government would dispose of assets seized from Mr. Gual's West, including the mansions, the supercar, and the cash, and use the money to repay victims. Despite Mr. Gual's political alliances, a presidential pardon appears unlikely. In 2017, Mr. Trump considered deporting Mr. Gual to China, where he faced a slew of criminal charges stemming from his alliance with the high-ranking Chinese spy master, Mai Zhan, whose arrest on corruption charges in early 2015 prompted Mr. Gual to flee the country. On both sides of the Pacific, Mr. Gual practiced a ruthless form of business. In China, when a Beijing vice mayor stood in the way of Mr. Gual's developing a plot of land adjacent to the site of the 2008 Summer Olympics, Mr. Gual obtained a tape showing the official's sex with a mistress. The official was ousted and given a suspended death sentence for bribery. American supporters of Miles Gual haunted a bankruptcy trustee overseeing the liquidation of his properties, accused the trustee of being a tool of the Chinese Communist Party. They then gathered outside the Massachusetts school where the daughter of the trustees worked, holding signs such as one that read, "How does living off your father's attempted extortion of a Chinese dissident make you feel?" Mr. Gual saved his choice words for senior Chinese leaders and their families. In early 2017, after 2 years of keeping a low profile, Mr. Gual burst on the social media accusing the Communist Party ruling elite of corruption, which they are corrupt. It's true. It was part of a long effort to reach, but so was Miles Gual. Corruption. It's like pointing fingers, like the Spider-Man meme. It was part of a long effort to reshape himself as a principled political activist, and during the trial, his lawyers asserted that his actions had been pursued in the democratic China. It didn't sway the jury. Is Miles Gual a real political activist or not? I don't know. I don't care, and neither should you. Juliana Murray, the assistant U.S. attorney, told the jury as the trial was wrapping up. He's an opportunist. He's a fraudster. Oh, very much so, yes. Maybe a double agent, a triple agent. Who knows? Working for China, working for America, working for China. Who knows? Who knows? But Miles Gual pushed a lot of misinformation, QAnon, operation, beliefs. Still, dozens of Mr. Gual supporters packed the courtroom on Monday, while more than 100 others watched the overflow room. After his sentence, Mr. Gual turned around and smiled at them. Many clasped their hand in a gesture of respect. He escorted out. Mr. Gual thanked him and shouted in Mandarin, "It has only just started." Uh-oh. Trump at NATO, and of course the White House says Daddy's home. We're back to Daddy. About the Trump, every time he goes to NATO, he's Daddy. About the daddy posting. The White House is daddy posting again. Very homoerotic. So this is a reminder of Kalshi. Kalshi wants you to be able to bet on everything, right? Literally gamble and bet on everything, chat.
Mark, you've mentioned multiple times that you think prediction markets will be bigger than the stock market. What is it going to take to become a $1 trillion asset class?
It's pretty much already like close to $100 billion a year of asset class, right? Like, it's pretty easy to imagine a 10x from here. Like, we haven't even started. It's been a year. I think a very large number of people care, much larger than traditional markets. And I think retail as a pie has just been growing in the US, and I think it's going to keep growing. It's growing in the stock market, but it's growing outside of the stock market. The long-term vision is to financialize everything and create a tradable asset out of any difference in opinion. And I think if you do build a general purpose exchange that can resolve differences of opinions on anything, like, the TAM is quite massive, quite a bit bigger than the current TAM of the stock market. I think putting aside sort of the retail trading and the institutional trading product, like, there's sort of this separate product, which is like, we are living in a world where, like, we have an abundance of information, but there's a lot of noise, and, like, we don't really understand what's real from what's not. And prediction markets are an antidote to that. They do a very, very good job at distilling information and surfacing truth to people. And you're seeing this sort of massive shift where, like, people are using them whenever they think about questions about the future, you know, whenever they're debating about anything. And I think that trajectory is going to keep going. That's a new consumer habit that I don't think is going to be undone.
So bet on anything. Even if you're an insider, it's going to drive world events, right? Okay. Trump firm plans to sell priority access to True Social Post, possibly his own. President Donald Trump's media company is planning to charge for special high-speed access to True Social Post, including possibly his own, affecting national security and financial markets. The move announced Thursday would allow Wall Street trading firms and other institutions to get news from top True Social contributors in milliseconds so they could profit off of secret moves in stocks, bonds, and interest rates. Called Truth PSI, which is a form of psychic abilities, right? PSI is very interesting. So it's interesting. They call it Truth PSI, right? The new service comes among a flurry of other deals by Trump and his family company that critics say are exploiting the presidency for profit. Making craft prosper, right? For him and his family, right? Being able to bet on anything at any time, anywhere, no matter who you are, even if you have insider information, right? Driving news forward, driving what is truth forward, right? Making the ability to cast truth to the ground, right, chat? Okay. Follows similar offers of paid access on rival platforms, though with one key difference: the most popular True Social poster is the president himself, and the biggest shareholder of the public traded parent company would directly benefit. He's selling expedited privileged access to information about what he's doing as a president, said Kathleen Clark of Washington University School of Law, an expert in government and conflicts and of interest rules. Is yet more brazen corruption and improper exploitation of government power to enrich himself. The Trump family declined to comment about whether the new feature is profiting off the presidency. True Social public parent Truth Media and Technology did not respond to emailed questions, including whether the president's post will be excluded from the offering. A press release states it should allow traders to see the highest-ranking True Social accounts ahead of others. The president has the most followers, 12.9 million, followed by his oldest son, Don Jr., and close behind his son, Eric Trump. The release did not say how much the customers would be charged. And it's financial institutions, not you and I. Financial institutions. Okay. In the past few months, Trump has announced major decisions and musings on his platform. Yeah, including saying, you know, this truth is law. Like literally saying, my truth post is a declaration of law. That's not how the United States government works. That's not how the bonds of the executive branch to the United States Constitution work, Trump. You're not a king. You're not a dictator. Unless you think that you are. So your truth is the word, right? Oh, okay. Those losses, along with billions more of investor losses tied to a new Trump family crypto business, have drawn scrutiny after Trump's annual disclosure of his financial holdings. Shows he took more than $1 billion in revenue last year in the same companies and offerings. Conflict of interest laws would bar U.S. governments from owning a company that profits off their office by selling access to their decision through public posts. This is Washington University's Clark. But the president and vice president, she notes, are excluded from the provision. Despite all that, all presidents since the law passed decades ago have acted as if it applied, selling individual stocks, so-called, dumping business holdings, or putting their financial assets in a blind trust so they would know what is being bought and sold on their behalf while they wielded power. But Trump has so far refused. Trump media has been trying to lift his stock price recently by branching into various businesses, including crypto, financial services, and even nuclear fusion. Recently replaced his long-term CEO, former Congressman Devin Nunes, with the senior media executive Kevin McGurn. In the release, McGurn described the Truth PSI, which, if we're talking about tire, means pound per square inch. However, PSI also has a psychic ability, also mentioned in a video game that I used to play as a child, Earthbound. It could mean both, right? This is really interesting that it's called that. There might be the acronym might be something different than what I'm thinking of. But still, nonetheless, I just, that is what it makes me think. And I guess if thinking off the top of my head, you also have, I don't remember exactly which letter of the Greek alphabet, but you have psi. And again, psi, psychokinesis, ESP, like it's another name for it, right? So, I digress. All right. White House teleprompter. Operator made more than $100,000 betting on Trump's speeches. The White House said that Gabriel Perez has been placed on unpaid leave. But I thought this insider trading that's in Kalshi, I thought that was perfectly fine, chat. Color to be shocked. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I guess I was mistaken. I apologize, chat. Sorry about that. President Donald Trump's long-term teleprompter operator is believed to have made tens of thousands of dollars by placing bets on more than a dozen of Trump's speeches on the prediction market Kalshi. Federal investigators with the Commodity Futures Trading Commission found sources familiar with the matter told ABC News. Gabriel Perez, a technical assistant to the president who has been operating Trump's teleprompter since 2016, that talks to federal regulators to settle allegations he used his inside knowledge of the president's speeches to win more than $100,000, the sources said. According to the sources, Kalshi alerted its regulator, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, to suspicious activity on its mentions market when users can bet on whether specific groups, phrases, and topics are uttered during its public speech. But I thought that was okay. Per the heads of Kalshi and Polymarket, I thought that was fine. I thought that was encouraged. So, this guy, when he does it, it's not okay. When Trump and his family and his stooges and his cronies do it, it's perfectly fine. They can make as much money as they want. But when some dude who works a teleprompter, no. Again, the institution's getting access to Trump's psi, right? Yeah, okay. Rules for thee, not for me. Our surveillance team promptly flagged and referenced these traders to the CFTC, and we are cooperating and assisting regulators, Kalshi's head of the enforcement, Bobby Denault, said. In a statement provided to ABC News. All right. There you go. White House President Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters Thursday afternoon following the ABC News report that Perez has been put on unpaid administrative leave. Leavitt says she spoke with President Trump about it. He thought it was a disgrace and made the decision himself to put Perez on unpaid leave. Come on, do y'all believe that? Trump was disgraced at this bit. Maybe he was upset that he didn't make an extra $100,000. The corruption of this administration knows no bounds. And people want to tell me, John, the Biden administration was the most corrupt administration in the entire world. It's like, it was corrupt, as all administrations before it. There's a certain amount of corruption, obviously, yeah. But the Trump administration corruption, at least in the second term, knows no bounds in American history. But people want to tell me, Biden, he's so horrible. And he is. We should pray for him. But to act like Trump is better? What are we doing, chat? A spokesman for the CFTC declined to comment. In addition to February's State of the Union address, sources said the CFTC investigators discovered that Perez placed bets on more than a dozen Trump speeches over a 3-month period, including a December primetime address, a January speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, address remarks in March during a Medal of Honor ceremony. Later in March, the White House issued an internal memo warning staff against using non-public information to place bets on prediction markets, sources previously confirmed to ABC News. President served as one of the Trump's teleprompter operators since Trump's first presidential campaign. Of all the Trump's closest aides, sources said Perez typically has the final eyes on nearly all of the presidential prepared remarks. It's often known to take last-minute edits from Trump himself. He previously came under scrutiny by Congress, and he only made 100,000 by congressional and federal investigators over the edits that were made prior to delivery of Trump's remarks surrounding the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. Trump is known to frequently deviate from his prepared remarks and himself often acknowledges. In certain instances, investigators uncovered times where Perez would back out of certain bets mid-speech when Trump skipped over a portion of the speech to include a word. Oh, yeah, that would make sense. And he previously bet would be mentioned, the sources said. Well, maybe, yeah. Trump isn't predictable in his speeches. It's not like he's known to follow the teleprompter like most other presidents are. Okay, yeah. Fair. In certain instances, investigators uncovered times where Perez would back out. Okay. According to sources familiar with the investigation, Perez said for an interview with regulators in recent months and acknowledged some of the trades at some point during the investigation. The sources said the CFTC alerted federal prosecutors in Manhattan who declined to open a criminal investigation. Regulators at the CFTC expressed a willingness to settle with Perez and have discussed terms with him that require Perez to give back his profits and refrain from making similar trades, according to sources familiar with the outgoing discussions. Kalshi has a policy against users placing bets on information obtained as part of their jobs. So they say, but we have the head of Polymarket and Kalshi both saying that it's important to drive the world, pretty much. So they can, again, that policy could be leveraged against this guy, but not leveraged against Trump, and we're going to get to that in a minute, and his children, out of Trump's own mouth, all right? Again, rules for thee, not rules for me. All right. The Department of Justice in recent months brought 2 first case of insider trading on prediction markets, including a special forces soldier who allegedly bet on the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Separately, a Google employee allegedly bet on use of searches using internal company data. Both pled not guilty. President Trump has occasionally criticized prediction markets, but said in April that he supports them because the United States could be left out in the cold if the country does not allow companies like Kalshi and Polymarket to operate. Polymarket and Kalshi both backed by Peter Thiel. Polymarket was allowed to operate back in the United States when it couldn't operate it back in beforehand, this Trump's second term. Well, the whole world, unfortunately, has become somewhat of a casino. And you look at what's going on all over the world in Europe and every place they're doing these betting things. I was never much in favor of it. I don't like it conceptually, but it is what it is. I've never been really a fan. I've never been really a fan of betting, chat. But yet, you know, the Trump Taj Mahal. Yeah, just ridiculous. All right. Kalshi opens betting market for pharmaceutical trials and FDA decisions. Now you can bet on if your favorite drug is going to get. Wait, what are we doing? Betting on everything, right? Ridiculous. All right. Trump boasts about giving his children. All right,
because every time my kids do, if they invest in a stock or if they go and do a bill, anything they do, because the presidency is so powerful, so big, everything. Right. If they buy a cupcake company, well, the energy to make the cupcakes is, you know, sort of like, how's my energy policy? So therefore, you have a conflict. Almost anything they do, if they want to buy a truck, if they want to buy, you know, if they buy an energy efficient truck, if they have inside information. It's pretty tough in that sense. I tell my kids, stay away from as much as you can stay away from, but they also have a life, you know, they feel badly.
Yeah, you know, they got all this insider information, right? But stay away from it, but yet I'm making money hand over fist about it. And they're making, you know, I mean, come on, chat. It's ridiculous, dude. Donald Trump Jr. got a Kalshi stake for free. Now it could be worth billions. The prediction market platform hires a $40 billion valuation. Of course, we know Donald Trump Jr. is, you know, deeply involved in the boards and connected to Kalshi and Polymarket, right? Donald Trump Jr. is reportedly sitting on a sizable paper gain after prediction market Kalshi handed him an equity worth roughly $300,000 when he joined the strategic advisor in early 2025. Trump Jr. did not invest his own money. Kalshi granted him the stake when the company is valued at under $2 billion, less than a tenth of its $22 billion evaluation in the funding round last month. The Financial Times reported on Friday, citing people familiar with the matter. The company has reported it talks to raise fresh capital, the valuation around $40 billion as soon as the third quarter of this year. Kalshi has been a direct beneficiary of the Trump administration's light touch approach to prediction markets. The Commodity Future Trading Commission, the CFTC, which previously tried to halt Kalshi's event contracts on congressional elections, dropped its appeal against the company in May 2025. 2 months later, the Department of Justice told you, and it is a separate probe into rival platform Polymarket. Polymarket was allowed to operate back in the United States after that, over whether it's legally accepted bets from American traders. Trump Jr. announced a Kalshi row in January 2025 on X, writing his family used the platform election night to know they had won hours ahead of the fake news media. I mean, what? Oh man, just the amount of just the rampant corruption in the Trump administration. Oh, we got the Trump coin, chat. We got Trump coin. Liberty and God we trust, with Trump's scowling face, right? As America commemorates its 250 years of independence, the United States Mint will be striking its new $1 coin to honor the enduring legacy of liberty, a lasting symbol of patriotism, featuring President Trump as celebrates the strength of American values and the promise of a nation dedicated to preserving freedom once and for all. Of course, we got a look of Trump's new passport. Yes, our new United States new password. Welcome, but be good. President Donald John Trump has Trump's scowling face yet again behind the Congress. So if you get a new passport, this is what you're going to get for the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. Trump being a strong man and being serious. And what are we doing? Anduril Industry founder Paul Malecki presents a Barracuda cruise missile on Japanese TV. Think S-90 for this. Is designed to scare China into not taking action on Taiwan. It has a very specific purpose. We designed our cruise missiles so they can be very easily manufactured by automotive-style assembly lines. Remember that during World War II, the United States used their peacetime factories to pivot them to wartime use. It's much less expensive than a conventional missile. It's cheaper to make 100,000 of these than 1,000 existing missiles. I should be able to buy a whole bunch of this for effort than a budget compact car. There we go. And, of course, I believe that they're using those same drones right now in Iran, those Barracuda, Anduril Industries sea drones, the Strait of Hormuz, and a reminder of what Anduril Industries said about those drones, which was as above, so below, showing their occultism. I've covered Palmer Luckey. I've covered Peter Thiel funding Anduril and using anime for their Underwood or Barracuda sea drones, as above, so below, wearing occultic warfare, right? From The Guardian, Trump's Board of Peace plans to grant itself sweeping immunity, documents show. The United States sanctioned Board of Peace, the UN sanctioned Board of Peace, announced by Donald Trump earlier this year, to rule Gaza is planning a sweeping grant of illegal immunity for itself, according to a draft of the resolution obtained by The Guardian. The draft language would also let the organization obtain public property in Gaza free of charge. Woof. The 4-page resolution, labeled sensitive but unclassified, extends broad protections to every member of the Board of Peace. This is insane, chat. To its administrative affiliate, the Office of the High Representative OHR, as well as to the Palestinian technocrats, internal military forces, and non-resident contractors lined up to perform work in Gaza. It defines legal processes for which they would have immunity as any arrest, detention, or legal proceedings in the courts or other entities in Gaza. It's crazy. It's unclear if the document attempting to relieve the Board of Peace and its affiliates for prosecution or in international courts in addition to potential claims in Gaza. The Board of Peace chair, Donald Trump, would have the right to waive someone's legal immunity Pending majority support from his peace board, the June 2026 draft resolution states, the 7-member executive board that leads the Board of Peace includes Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, the President Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, his National Security Advisor, Marco Rubio. Though countries have pledged billions, most have not yet transferred funds to support its work in Gaza, and no major contracts have been issued. The White House referred questions to the Board of Peace directly. The Board of Peace does not answer specific questions about the draft resolution. But an official said in a statement, there is no operative resolution or immunity framework of the kind described in your questions. Any suggestion that this process is designed to create lawlessness or impunity is wrong, misleading, and gets to issue entirely backwards. Official added the suggestion that the president would have a role in establishing or waiving immunity in Gaza is categorically false, and the Board of Peace will ensure all personnel, contractors, and participating entities follow applicable law. And he's lawless in America. Why is he going to be? It's crazy to me. Trump has put his middle fingers up to international law or American law. It's crazy. And operating under clear rules, oversight, and accountability mechanisms. The official did not explain the oversight and accountability would be. Nikolay Maladinov, a Bulgarian diplomat, served as Board of Peace High Representative for Gaza, has been meeting in Cairo this week with Palestinian administrators selected by the Board of Peace to govern Gaza. So this is still moving forward. In spite of all that is happening right now, in the Middle East, this is still moving forward. The territory, according to one person familiar with the agenda, the Prospect Immunity Resolution, titled Resolution Number 2026-3, has not been shared with the Palestinian cohort, the person said. 6 lawyers specializing in United States contracting law Armed conflict reviewed the draft resolution for The Guardian. If the resolution goes into force, they said, it's unclear how Board of Peace officials, soldiers, and contractors will be held accountable if there are shootings or accidents that affect Gaza residents, or even how the group might resolve routine disputes over business or land use there. U.S.-led reconstruction efforts in Iraq and Afghanistan were often plagued by controversies of corruption or cases of civilian deaths or abuse at the hands of American contractors, including those working for Blackwater and KBR, since faced litigation in United States courts. Any reconstruction effort in Gaza could face similar challenges. It looks like an attempt to exempt the board and all of its personnel from accountability for potential legal violations, said Emily Schaefer Omerman, an expert in litigating international humanitarian law in Israeli, American, and foreign courts. Several lawyers, including Omerman, pointed to the specific risks associated with Section 7 of the draft resolution entitled Third-Party Liability Claims, which is out a system for the Board of Peace to consider and adjudicate any claims for property loss or damage and for personal injury, illness, or death arising from its work in Gaza. They're basically saying there's no external oversight about the legal protections afforded for potential work in Gaza, where the Trump-backed Peace Board has solicited bills for rubble removal, security work, and a vast reconstruction effort envisaged there. Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, has described transforming the coastal territory into a site of luxury resorts, high-tech cities, and regional business hubs. Laws governing international contractors and military forces are usually outlined in the status of force agreement between countries, but there's no such documents for Gaza. American contractors can be subject to U.S. law for certain crimes, even if they operate overseas. I think any company would want a very clear legal framework So I'm reading here. President Emeritus and the International Stability Operations Association are liability issues or any serious American company we want to be clear about. Israeli officials did not want to negotiate status of forces agreement in Gaza because Israel does not want to recognize Gaza as a state, one American security contractor said. It's pretty important for political and legal cover and insurance, the contractor said. It gives the people of Gaza clarity and comfort about how they be treated and dealt with contractors that they may engage with, should I say. Final section of the Board of Peace draft resolution entitled Premises of the Board of Peace, OHR, and ISF says the group shall be provided free of charge public premises and facilities needed for the accomplishment of the missions in Gaza. Legal experts said the singular phrase could open the door to illegal confiscation of Palestinian property. It's not clear which group, Israel, Hamas, or the Palestinian Authority, would be responsible for providing the Board of Peace with facilities and under what terms. The Board of Peace plans to build a base for an international military force as well as logistics hubs to power its operations there, according to contractors involved in the process. International force is intended to assist with disarming Hamas, which is a crucial step in Trump's peace plan. Israel has refused to proceed with steps outlined in a November 2025 ceasefire agreement if Hamas continues to bear arms. By unilaterally declaring the power to seize Palestinian land, property, and buildings for their own use without consent, compensation. Hold on. I'm having some issues with my internet for some reason. Okay. Far from signaling an end to genocide, apartheid, and occupation, this document suggests entrenching some of its ugliest signature characteristics, the risk not only complacency, but direct perpetration of grave abuses. Several attorneys raised questions about the Board of Peace legal authority to assume control of public facilities and premises. If they don't have status of forces agreement with Israel, then it's not clear what the board's legal authority would be, said Brad Parker, Associate Director of Policy at the Center for Constitutional Rights. CCR attorneys have represented victims in U.S. litigation against Blackwater and other American security contractors for alleged abuse in Iraq. The UN Security Council authorized the Board of Peace to oversee the administration of Gaza until December 31st, 2027. The UN Charter affords its diplomats and organizations specific legal protections for work conducted on behalf of UN missions abroad. Language in the Board of Peace draft resolution appears to draw on those existing frameworks, which include protections against the arrest or detention of UN diplomats during the official work, as well as the seizure of UN property. It's unclear if the Board of Peace could draw on UN immunities for its own protection. The draft says resolution will go into force upon Maladenov's signature. The Board of Peace did not respond to questions about whether additional parties, if any, would sign its sweeping resolution. How valuable is a document if they're the only ones signing it, Shakir said. So here's a picture of Trump AI done in the background with Canada and Greenland and Venezuela under American control. Here we go.
Donald, we believe we all should work to take this down. Trump responding with a jab. Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace. Now, Dear Donald, we believe we all should work to take this down. Trump responding with a jab. Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace. Now,
so there's him, going after Greenland again. We shall see. Dugan. The sudden death of Lindsey Graham could be a black mark sent to Trump. I doubt it was Iranian. More realistic, it was a Mossad job in order to push Trump to renew the full-scale war with Iran. Clear means you're the next. Lindsey Graham was a shadow of Trump, his black self. So, what I believe is coming up is going to be a push of authoritarianism in America to combat the left, quote-unquote, and communist, quote-unquote, in this dialectic of saving America. And yes, I have an issue with communism, just like I have an issue with crony capitalism, okay? But still, nonetheless, all right, this is how it's being framed, and I'm not saying it's true. Okay, you guys understand there's some problems with this rhetoric. Okay, some major problems. I don't want to gloss over and say it's just minor problems. There's major problems with this type of rhetoric. All right. Trump administration unleashes global campaign to crush radical left terrorism, which, again, against left terrorism, against right terrorism. Okay. Today, the Trump administration convened senior officials from governments around the world to launch an unprecedented global offensive against a transnational threat of radical left terrorism. What about radical right terrorism? What about both? What about, the kind of right-wing Gladio terror networks? What about them? Why does it have to be one-sided? Under the leadership of President Donald Trump, far-left extremism will be treated with the same seriousness and ferocity the world has long reserved for jihadist terrorism. Secretary of State Rubio exposed a long-standing willful blindness to the left-wing violence. Our counterterrorism doctrine has a blind spot when it comes to extremist violence from the political left. Even today, the very idea that the far-left terrorism could be a serious threat is treated as right-wing fever dream. Secretary Rubio warned that left-wing terrorism has urged to levels not seen in decades. Today, we face a new wave of this old evil here in the United States. The share of left-wing terrorist attacks and plots have risen to levels not seen in decades. Americans have seen what those numbers mean. Secretary Rubio detailed the transnational nature of the threat. Antifa militants and their comrades travel from across Europe and the Americas to participate in each other's attacks, funnel propaganda and training materials and target information through shared encrypted channels, moving through underground networks of safe houses and finances to sustain their operations through transnational funds. Okay, let's continue. Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent announced powerful tools to combat illicit funding. At President Trump's direction, Treasury is expanding its efforts to identify organizations that abuse charitable and nonprofit structures as vehicles for illicit finance. We're examining where tax-exempt status has been exploited, where charitable entities have become financial conduits for foreign influence activity. Secretary Bessent vowed to dismantle the financial infrastructure sustaining left-wing terrorism. We identify illicit funding, however artfully it is concealed. We dismantle the networks that sustain political terrorism. However respectable their fronts may be, we will pursue those who will enable political violence, however distant their jurisdictions. So during the Biden administration, and during the Obama administration before it, you know, they would frame right-wing terrorism and right-wing violence and lump in militias and Christian groups, right? And now you have, through both Trump administrations, the same painting of the radical left, right? The radical right and the radical left, right? And, you know, because of everything that's going on in the United States, you're seeing the populace, you know, rise up, right? And so, you know, I have family members who are leftists. I disagree with them politically. I pray for them, you know, but, like, they're not terrorists, you know, they're not communists, you know, like, even if someone's a communist, it doesn't make them a terrorist. They could just have mistaken ideological views. So they're trying to stoke fear and hatred and anger and, you know, not necessarily an exposure of the people that puppeteer these strings on the left world order, like the Council of Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Group, etc., right? Normal people that conspiracy culture, to a degree, rightfully calls out, right? George Soros, etc. You know, the right has its own issues with the Council for National Policy and La Circle and the Gladio networks. And you have Color Revolution networks on the leftist progressive side, you know? And so, you know, both sides should be called out, right? And, you know, there should be de-radicalization on both sides, and people should seek peace, and we should pray for peace, right? But this is the rhetoric that's coming out where I believe that if Trump maintains power, you know, if he is the Antichrist, and he is not run out of the United States by a left-wing uprising, and he just maintains power of the strong man and just crushes, okay, your leftist family members and friends and just left people that live around you, they will be persecuted and they will be potentially even killed. Now, I think it's far more likely that we have an inverse happen if Trump's Antichrist or not, that he escapes, maybe operates from Gaza and the Board of Peace or whatever, right? And, you know, there's Christian persecution in the United States because of Trump and his cronies, right? And because of the Board of Faith and the New Apostolic Reformation and all that, right? I think that's likely far more likely, okay? But this could happen too. And the rhetoric is being sowed for this, okay? All right, so just be aware that it could happen this way, that America does not fall and Trump is the strong man and they start persecuting leftists. Okay, and I don't know, and you know we could see how this turns out. I'm not saying thus saith the Lord. I don't have any divine revelation of which way it goes. I think it's more like that America is going to fall, but I don't know. All right, and so the rhetoric right now that's being put forth is, you know, the leaders of this leftist world order will be held accountable, are going to prison, you know, which is the exposure through the false Great Awakening and the externalization of the hierarchy. You know, the Black Lodge is exposed, it goes down. The so-called Great White Lodge with the Ascended Masters rises up in its place, and which for Christianity, that would be the harlot being eventually destroyed by the Antichrist. I believe the harlot right now is headquarters in Jerusalem and is represented, by the major Zionist world powers, City of London, various interests around the world, Jesuit interests, etc., right? Headquartered in Jerusalem, right? And so that will be destroyed by the beast and those who ally themselves with him to bring in the New World Order, which the world thinks we're under the New World Order now. We're not, okay? That's how the False Great Awakening comes in to play, all right? And so the world thinks that we are overcome rebelling against the New World Order and that the Antichrist is the savior, okay? But what the Antichrist brings in is technically the New World Order, the beast system, the age to come, the golden age, etc., whatever you want to call it, okay? So as Christians, we stay out of this. Stay out of it. As Christians, we love our neighbors ourselves. We love God with our mind, body, heart, and soul. Preach the gospel to all nations. Baptize those who believe in the name of the Father, the Son, and Holy Spirit. Okay? We don't let our heart be troubled. Okay? Hands off on this. Okay? So, we pray for our enemies. We love our enemies. All this, you guys know what I'm talking about, okay? Everybody here understands what I'm saying. All right. So that's what we're supposed to do. Okay. All right. Let's continue. Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller made it clear there must be no retreat. One of the hallmarks of left-wing violence and terrorism is completely pretextual and disingenuous appeal to civil liberties in an effort to shield its own violence. When the leftist who does not believe in freedom, who does not believe in civil rights, who does not believe in ordinary notion of justice, protest again. Their heart is wrong just as much as Stephen Miller's heart is wrong. Okay, a leftist and someone like Stephen Miller, who I don't believe is a born again Christian, their hearts are wrong. They're not towards God. He doesn't understand what justice is. He doesn't understand what freedom in Christ is. Okay, you understand? Like your average leftist doesn't either. They may mean well, and I don't argue that Stephen Miller does not mean well, but your average MAGA conservative who believes in this rhetoric means well, right? But it's all weaponized. It's all weaponized for hatred and anger and bloodshed. Okay. Because these are all absolutes about the left. You can't blanket the left just like you can't blanket the right, all right? Protests that are violating his right to understand that he is lying to try to persuade people who are not closely following the political scene that some injustice is perpetrated against him. We must stay the course and be completely unflinching in pursuit of justice against these enemies of civilization. I'll outline the historic actions that have already been taken by the Trump administration here in the United States. We have been taking necessary and essential action, formally recognizing left-wing violence as a form of political terrorism. It's a direct threat to our national security and survival of our Republican form of government. This is a sustained campaign to eradicate a violent ideology that targets police, civilians, as own foundations of free societies. Interesting terminology, right? With Soros. Last year, President Trump designated Antifa as a domestic terrorism organization and unleashed a relentless campaign to dismantle left-wing terrorism and bring its perpetrators to justice. Their funding is now being cut off, and international partners are now coordinating to shut down their safe havens, propaganda channels, and cross-border operations. Under President Trump, radical left terrorism is finally being confronted as the organized transnational threat it actually is. So now the threat is within, right? The left threat within, the right threat within, your neighbor's the threat. Don't love your neighbor, be fearful. Don't fear God, fear your neighbor. Like that is what's setting up for. And if a leftist takes over, it's just going to swing in the complete opposite direction. So if Trump stays in power, this wing stays in power, the right wing stays in power, there will be left progressive persecution. And there already has been, as far as ICE, as far as the homeless, which, they're right-wing people that are immigrants and they're right-wing homeless. But I just, I digress there. But in general, if the left gets in power, then it's going to swing back in the opposite direction. And and this is setting up for some sort of either color revolution that's violently put down, which I'm not a fan of, or persecution of right-wing people and Christian, which obviously is one I'm not a fan of either. So, persecution is coming. And it's coming for believers, ultimately. but there's going to be some other people that might be persecuted soon first. Okay. And we harbor them who are being unrighteously persecuted. There might come a time where your leftist, progressive, blue-haired neighbor, they're rounding up the communists, so-called, and you as a Christian, you need to hide them in your house. You need to understand this, okay? You need to get this. You need to show them the love of Christ by trying to protect them. The same with, the persecution of Jewish people that come and the persecution of other Christians. You need to understand that life is life, all right? Your martyrdom may impress upon this person for them to believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. You need to understand this. Okay? I cannot make this statement strong enough.
Everyone in this room and all the media that I was the subject of an assassination attempt February 2024 by an adult left-wing activist 2 hours after being sworn into my job. So any of you who want to report that this is a fiction and does not exist, be there for the sentencing this August. So good morning. Thank you, Secretary Rubio, for convening this.
We had no idea there was an assassination attempt on Besant by a so-called left-wing activist who's going to be sentenced. That was kept from the news, and now that I didn't hear this and I missed this, I might have missed it. Again, this is ramping up. This is ramping up, you guys. I cannot stress this enough. The communists are finally making their move. It's been waiting. This is from Donald John Trump's True Social, reposted by the Rapid Response White House account, okay? The communists are finally making their move. It's been waiting and preparing for this for a long time. It's easy to be a communist. All you have to do is say, I'll give you everything, but that means you're taking it away from others who have earned it over thousands of years. That ideology has not worked once. The game is on. This is a game. People's lives are a game. Enjoy watching. Enjoy the show. People's lives are a game to Donald Trump. Who is he, Caligula? They're just a game to the emperor, you guys. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I'm sorry. And look, again, I am a Christian conservative. I am against the ideology of progressivism. It is counter to Bible-believing Christianity. But this type of rhetoric of what they're setting up of something that may come to pass, which is the persecution of progressives and liberals because they're an enemy of the nation. And your average communist who just doesn't know any better, who just has poor ideology, just like your average crony capitalist. And I'd actually argue that a lot of the crony capitalists are higher up positions taking advantage of people. Or your average fascist, right? Believer. Even some of them might admire Franco, for example. Like, come on, people. Like, what are we doing? And what does Trump say? Because he can't stop boasting about himself, right? He's the scourge of communism, but what does Trump say?
Communism is very easy to sell. It destroys everything, but it's very easy. I'll be honest, I think I'd be the greatest communist in history. I'd give free rent. Ladies and gentlemen, from now on, you don't have to pay any rent. From now on, anybody wants a house, don't worry about it. Just pick the house you want. Communism is very easy to sell. It destroys everything, but it's very easy. I'll be honest, I think I'd be the greatest communist in history. I'd give free rent. Ladies and gentlemen, from now on, you don't have to pay any rent. From now on, anybody wants a house, don't worry about it. Just pick.
I would be the best communist, but we just talked about how bad communism was. But he would be the best communist, right? Chat, I would be the best, the absolute best communist dictator. I give everybody everything they wanted. They just have to bow down and kiss me and worship my statues. I'd be the best. I'd be the best. It's ridiculous that anybody could take this man seriously. And the argument that, Trump is former Democrat, like, this is ridiculous. Like, former in quotation marks. What are we doing? What are we doing? And they're asking us to hate on the left. Like, and hate your average progressive. You know, don't attack their ideology. Hate them. The scourge of the homeless, the scourge of communists, the scourge of. But Trump said he'd be a communist, but the scourge of communism. And yes, I am against communism. It's so ridiculous. So ridiculous. Oh Lord. And of course, Trump just outright blaspheming himself again. But like, does anybody care? Anybody? Does anybody care? Trump posts a boastful Atlas-inspired true social image of himself carrying the world on his shoulders. Look, he's Atlas. Someone AI generated him being Atlas, draped over the American flag, and we're supposed. What's going on? How can anybody think that Trump's retruthing this stuff? And he's like, I'm carrying the world on my back. The strong man is carrying the world on his back, draped with an American flag, and I'm supposed to be told this man is a Christian. He's Atlas. He's Jesus. Trump's Jesus, y'all. As Aaron Fochman said, Trump's Jesus. Trump's Jesus. Trump's everybody. Trump's everybody and nobody at the same time. And, you know, in closing, 2 American service members have been killed. One is still missing after an Iranian missile on attack on a base in Jordan. It's about to escalate more than it already is. That's what this whole entire stream is. What a latter time to be alive. And what do I mean by that? 1 Timothy 4. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly, that's the Holy Spirit, that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, so the great falling away, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry. That sounds like the Catholic, monoepiscopate, right? And kind of like your monastic cults, right? We're seeing a resurgence of that last couple of 100 years, right? The asceticism of the Essenes, right? Forbidden to marry, right? And commanding to abstain from meats. Judaizing, right? Pork, right? Or abstaining from all meats. Vegetarianism and veganism, right? All those are on the rise. Which God hath created to receive with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. For every creature of God is good, and nothing to be refused. Remember, what was made, quote-unquote, kosher in God's law in the Old Testament was to separate Israel from the rest of the world so they know that they were God's. It was to separate them. It wasn't that these foods were unclean. They were bad. They were labeled as that the foods in of themselves, that I say. They were labeled that so that a Jew would not be seeing it eating it. An Israelite, should I say, would not be eating it. So they would be separating themselves from the world so that they would know that they followed God, right? That's what the law was for, right? So the animals eating pork, a pig isn't bad. God said creation is very good. A pig is an animal, right? It's an animal. It's an animal. And now, since we live in the new covenant, not the old covenant, Jesus Christ fulfilled the old covenant, right? 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 Then there is no need, especially to the Gentile. I'm a Gentile. Acts, 15 is to me. Don't eat food sacrificed to idols, right? And don't, eat blood. So for every creature of God is good and nothing to be refused is received for thanksgiving, for is sanctified by the word of God in prayer. Right? The commanding to abstain from meats, forbidding to marry, seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. Gnosticism. Right? All the heresies of the first century: Gnosticism, Judaizing, and monasticism. Essene asceticism. You could pretty much boil it down to these Essenes. The Essene Gnostic teachings and Essene asceticism, both from the forbidding to marry and the commanding of the abstaining of meats. Both boils down to both of them. The heresies of the first century. They make a strong return in the end of days, the latter times. It's what you're seeing. So don't let your heart be troubled. With everything going on, trust in the Lord. Pray never ceasing. Don't hate people. Love your neighbor as yourself. Pray for them. Pray for your enemies. Pray for your friends. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Take care, everyone. God bless you. I love you. I'm going to do more streams soon. Take care. And God bless.